everyone. Happy Tuesday. It is Traci coming to you live from Golden Dog Adventure Company headquarters for another Lunch and Learn this month. And I am here with our partner, Jake Belmont of Red Pointy Dog Training. How are you, Jake?
I'm doing good. How about you, Traci?
Doing well, thanks. Glad to have you here as our featured expert and as our expert for Lunch and Learn. I think this is an extremely timely topic with Independence Day right around the corner. And it's interesting. I saw it was a post either on Facebook or Instagram recently that said, if your dog is afraid of loud sounds, you need to call your vet today, not July 3rd.
Right. Yes, definitely.
So I'm really glad we're doing this in advance because this will give people an opportunity to better understand noise phobia and how it affects their dogs and get some assistance from you guys through your great webinar coming up very shortly.
Yeah.
So guys, if you have questions, let us know. This is a really important conversation. I want to make sure Jake gets your questions answered because that webinar is coming up very quickly. So I'm glad you're joining us today. Jake's got a great presentation, and then we'll let you know more about the webinar coming up. So Jake, I'll put your presentation into the stream here. And also for anybody who's watching who's not familiar with you or Red Pointy Dog, if you could just let us know a little bit about what you guys do as well.
Yeah, definitely. Red Pointy Dog Training. We're based out of Stratford. Me and my wife Louise run it. We're both certified professional dog trainers and have been for a long time. I've been working with dogs since I was 17, so 15 years now, professionally. And yeah, noise phobia is something that we deal with all the time with lots and lots of different dogs, including dogs I grew up with. And right now, my parents' dog, Pemmy, is very, very afraid of lots of noises. So doing some research, trying to figure out how to help them. And while I was doing that, I just realized how big of an issue it really is.
Yeah, I'm really glad for this too, because Dakota is the same way. Gilly is not, but Dakota is. It's so strange how one can be so afraid and one's not phased at all.
Yeah. Luckily, Monzo and Piper, our dogs right now, they don't seem to care. Sometimes they'll bark at it if it's really loud or if there's like hail on the window, but they're just kind of normally sleep through these things. So luckily we don't have to deal with it, but I know lots of dogs that are very close to me that do.
And you're absolutely right.
It's sad. You feel kind of helpless just watching your best friend just kind of shake in the corner or whatever they're doing.
I know. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you're giving us some great information to know how to better to help them.
Yeah, hopefully. Okay, so should we get started?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
Awesome. And I will say I'm on my wife's computer, so if things go weird, not my
fingers
fault.
Crossed.
Okay, so things that we're going to go over today is what is noise phobia, what causes it, why it's so important to help dogs who have it, and we're going to go over some management tools and some plans for day of events like you mentioned, the 4th of July is coming up and it's thunderstorm season, and having a plan in place can be really, really helpful.
Yeah, I find too with hunting season, because we've got so much land around here. Yeah, that's very scary for me.
Definitely. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But yeah, gunshots. Dogs who are afraid of gunshots in New Hampshire have a rough time, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Yeah. Okay. So noise phobia, basically, it's an intolerance or hypersensitivity to sound. And that can mean anything from a dog looking a little uncomfortable to, the dog salivating, shaking, basically panicking. Our dog, when I was a kid, Maggie, had a lot of noise phobia. And what she would do, she would go to the laundry room, grab every piece of laundry she could find, she could fit in her mouth, and she would just pace around in circles whining. And it was like really cute, but really sad.
Oh, yeah.
And some of you might be able to guess she was a golden retriever. That's why she wanted to collect everything in her mouth, I think. But yeah, she was kind of the first dog that we really had that, had this stuff. So it can, present itself in lots of different ways. I don't know what Dakota does, but Pemmy, for example, she shakes and she tries to hide and run away and stuff.
Yeah, and Dakota gets very cuddly. She wants to go wherever you are. Doesn't matter if it's the bathroom, the cellar. She is right there with you. And if you're on the couch, if she can be in your lap, she will. And she's a,
Yeah.
42-pound dog, so she's relatively heavy.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I know some Great Danes who try to be in people's lap during storms, so it could be worse.
Oh.
And one of the things I found pretty surprising when I was doing this research, they're like conservative estimates say that 40% of pet dogs suffer from some type of noise phobia. And that can be so many different things. Usually it's loud noises, thunder, fireworks, gunshots, like you mentioned, stuff like that are all pretty common, but it can be really anything. It can be beeping or, it doesn't knows no bounds really. It can be anything. So yeah, 40% of pet dogs, that's nearly half the population. And also those same studies show that like 20% have debilitating fears. So fears that really affect their day-to-day life. And yeah, unfortunately, most people wait until they're that part of that 20% before they try and get help. But yeah, even if you have a puppy who seems to be like looking around when there's a storm, it's time to help them now so it doesn't get worse.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what causes noise phobia? There's some debate. There's a lot of different theories. There's some things that we pretty much know for sure, but basically, there's a lot of different things that it could be. One of the main ones is fear of the unknown. Like we can't tell our dogs why that's happening or what it is, or we can't explain it to them like you could your kids or something. So yeah, they don't know what's going on. So that can be really scary. And this is for thunderstorms, changes in the barometer and static electricity. They can sense those things much better than we can. And if anybody has a thunderphobic dog, a lot of times they will know a storm's coming way before we do because of these two things. So yeah, it's just something they sense, and that can be that can cause the fear too. Previous trauma, and that can be something as simple as a gunshot went off while they stepped on something sharp, and that's all it took. Or it could be something much more serious. They could have been, locked in somewhere, and the fireworks were going off. They didn't know what was going on. They tried to escape and they got hurt, and their phobia got way worse. And once again, there's a big spectrum of what trauma can really mean. Um, and some people think it's an instinctual thing, like, all right, loud noises usually mean scary things are happening. So somewhere in their DNA, there's something that tells them they need to be wary of these things. Wild animals during a thunderstorm tend to hunker down, and that's some people think that that's a big reason why dogs are so afraid of thunder. And then one of the more interesting, more maybe sad ones is sometimes later in life, our dogs develop these things. And they found a lot of times that is linked with pain or discomfort. So your dog's arthritis is getting really bad. They're already uncomfortable. Things that didn't bother them before start to bother them now. So yeah, when people ask me if my dogs have noise phobia, I say, well, not yet. And even though they're 11 and 12, there's always that chance that it can develop. But yeah, in a lot of cases, we might not know. This is one of those things that it doesn't necessarily matter why we're going to tackle it the same way. So yeah, there are other reasons that people think, but these tend to be the ones that people have done some studies on, and yeah, that's the main reasons that the experts think that this is happening. But yeah, so why it's important to help. These things can increase over time. So I talked about like the puppy who's curious about thunder, that can quickly develop to fear. Usually dogs, if they're afraid of something when they're younger, and we don't do anything about it, it's only going to get worse over time. That's not every dog, but these things tend to not fix themselves. So yeah, the more they're exposed to the thing they're afraid of, the more they're going to be afraid of it. And it's really easy for fear to become generalized. So like a fear of fireworks can lead to a fear of cars backfiring, can lead to a fear of gunshots. So one thing that's scary can lead to other things scary. I know plenty of dogs who are terrified of thunderstorms, and that's led them to be really afraid of rainy days over time. And then the fear of rainy days, this is maybe not a common thing, but I know a couple dogs who the fear of rainy days turned into a fear of cloudy days. So yeah, it's in those cases, that's a little bit more of an extreme case, but it can happen, and if we can do something about it,
Well,
a lot
that's really interesting. And you said something on the last slide that I thought was particularly interesting as well, where you said your dogs are not afraid of noises yet. And I
Hmm,
think you're right because Dakota has a lot of sensitivities to many different types of noises. But the only sensitivity we found with Gilly so far is to a beeping sound on our GoPro camera.
yeah,
And so now what's interesting is we finally figured out how to turn off that beeping sound, but every time we put the camera near her, she knows that is the object that had the scary sound.
yep, yeah,
So, yeah, I'm really curious when, you've taken away the sound, yet the dog is still fearful of the item or the rainy day or the clouds because they're all somehow related.
right.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what kind of um, help you have for these dogs.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where, that's that generalization. The beeping for whatever reason freaked her out, and then the scary thing that made the beeping was gonna start freaking her out. I used to house sit, and there was a dog who was afraid of the beeping camera, and after a while, if you even pointed a phone at her, she would run away and hide under the bed.
Oh,
And it was so sad. But
yeah.
otherwise, the dog had no fears, super social. It was just that thing.
Wow.
So interesting, yeah. But yeah, Gilly's not alone. That's one of the more common ones, even though it's not a loud noise. Um, and yeah, some of the theories behind that are like, the fire alarm goes off, and that's loud beeping, and that can generalize to, smaller beeping over time.
Yeah,
Um,
Jake, we have a comment here too from Michelle. She says, if Brutus is alone, he's fine. He actually wants to run outside and eat the thunder. If Ruby is home, she's fearful. He feeds off of her energy and gets a bit anxious, but
yeah,
not as bad as Ruby. That's fascinating between the two dogs, actually.
sure. And knowing Brutus, that doesn't surprise me very much, because he's so sensitive. But yeah, that can definitely happen. Not in every case, but learned fearfulness. So in that case, we would want to help Ruby to then help Brutus,
Mm,
so because he can develop, all right, something, she's scared, so something must be going on.
right, right. They trust each
So,
other. Exactly.
right, yeah, we can feed off each other. And yeah, definitely, it's not super common for a dog to do that, but it is definitely not unheard of. Um,
Okay. Well, we've got another comment here from someone else who says, we had a dog that recognized that beeping, warning, or red scrolling on the weather channel and ran under the bed.
oh, no way. Wow,
Wow.
that's
Huh.
that's pretty.
It's amazing what dogs will be fearful of, the noises that we
Yeah,
take for granted. We've got a
sure,
few more comments coming in here. We've got we break out our enrichment activities and they forget what's going on. Oh, that's an
great,
interesting strategy,
awesome,
which I
yep.
bet you're going to talk about.
Hmm.
And then Ray says, we used to have the underground fence. So I think beeping of the fence made her nervous of other beeps that are scary. I think he's referring to Gilly there. So
Yep,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
that's
even
super,
underground
super
fences
common.
and things like that outside. Like like the oh, what am I trying to think of? The poles, the electric phone poles.
Yeah,
When those make the buzzing sounds, they can
yeah,
hear them a lot better than us, and that must be
definitely.
scary as well.
Yeah, yeah, for some dogs, I know some dogs who definitely struggle with that. Some of our favorite places to walk is under the, whatever, the power line trails and
Yeah,
stuff,
because it's a
so
nice open area, right?
yeah, yeah, don't go in tick season, but otherwise, you're pretty
Yeah.
good. But yeah, I definitely have brought a dog, be like, "Oh, this is gonna be nice," and it's, like, slightly rainy, so they're buzzing, and the dog's like, "No, I'm gonna die here, we have to leave." So
I trust you and love you, but let's get out of here.
right, yeah, exactly. Um,
All right, great comments, guys. Keep them coming, and if you have questions for Jake, let us know, please.
yeah, definitely, we're gonna talk a little bit more about that enrichment a little bit later too.
Okay, good.
So yeah, safety. 4th of July is the number one day that dogs go missing every single year. It's like a ridiculous spike. And also, like, there's a lot of studies about how the loud noises of fireworks really affect wildlife too, and
Yeah.
humans as well.
Yep.
So yeah, flight is something, trying to get away from it, that can get our dogs into lots of trouble.
Yep.
So becomes a safety issue sometimes, and it's just hard to watch. And it's hard if there's a rumble way far away at 2 a.m. Your dog needs to get you up because they're panicking. Yeah, it's just hard. We can make all of our lives easier by helping them conquer these fears.
That's exactly
Um,
right.
yeah, in the training, it takes a while, but it's effective.
Yep.
So yeah. So talk a little bit about what we can do day of. So in the webinar that I'm doing next week, we're going to talk a lot about a training plan to help your dog get over the fears. But in the meantime, we need to have a plan to help them day of so those traumatic experiences aren't quite as bad. So having a plan and having your tools ready can be really helpful. You see this nice happy dog asleep with his or her thunder shirt on. And if anybody hasn't used a thunder shirt, definitely something to try. Um, but yeah, thunder shirt, calming cap, adaptil, those are all things that have actually they have studies behind them. Some of the stuff out there that you can buy, it's like, yeah, it worked for my neighbor's dog, and it's all kind of like there's nothing really behind it yet. Some of it's still being studied, but those are ones that have actually worked. Thundershirt is basically a jacket that you wrap around really tightly. It's like swaddling a baby. Pressure points make your dog feel a little bit better. Calming cap works a lot of the same way. It goes over their head. So if you have a dog who like hates wearing clothes, like Piper, Thundershirt makes her more anxious. But the calming cap, it goes over their head, over their eyes, kind of over their ears. Is a much better way to help her calm down. And adaptil it's synthetic pheromones. They mimic what a mother dog gives off to her puppies, and it comes in either like a Glade style, puff thing that emits the pheromones every now and then, or a collar. We don't smell it at all, and yeah, that's out of the over-the-counter things that are sold, the most research has been done on adaptil. So that tends to be one that we really like to try at least. And it's not going to work for every dog, especially a dog who's jumping out of their skin or something. But it has been proven to help. And then other than that, you can set up some calming music. There's some interesting stuff about like if it's a thunderstorm, you want something with a lot of bass, a lot of low frequencies versus fireworks, much higher pitch sound. You want something more with more treble and higher frequencies. But you don't want to like put on really like aggressive music or scary sounds or something. But yeah, like uh, matching what you're using to what your dog is used to and what the sounds are that they're afraid of can be really helpful. And then setting up a success station. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec. Did you have a question?
Well, I just one of the studies that we had researched a little while ago for when we had one of the Ask the Vet sessions said that dogs tend to prefer classical and reggae music.
Reggae, interesting. I've
Yeah,
always heard
which
classical.
yeah, which tend to have some of those, deeper tones and stuff that you mentioned. So
Yeah. And there's also a lot of studies about like your dog will develop feelings towards certain types of music if you use it in certain times. So if like
oh
you
yeah.
play a certain soundtrack whenever they're relaxing, just hearing that soundtrack will help them relax. But yeah, I didn't know about reggae. That's pretty funny. I wonder why.
Yeah, actually, reggae, the studies suggested that reggae supersedes classical as the favorite type of music for dogs, based on
Interesting.
numerous studies that people had time and money to conduct, I guess.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, if you think of it, I'd love to read that. That's
yeah,
that's
yeah, if
that's
I
pretty
can find
cool.
it, I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
I'll make a note.
Um cool. Yeah, so throw on your Bob Marley. And so a success station is like setting them up in the best environment possible to help them be calm, be comfortable. So set them up away from the windows because that's where the scary sounds are coming from usually. Kind of think about what your dog does naturally when they're afraid. So you said Dakota follows you everywhere.
Yeah.
So think about that. Set up a place where she can be near somebody. I know plenty of dogs who they go and hide in the bathroom tends to be a pretty popular one. Not sure if it's because it tends to be a little bit more closed in, or the shower, or the generally our bathrooms do have windows, so it's interesting. But if your dog hides in the bathroom, set them up some blankets in the bathtub, throw your Adaptil, plug in the bathroom, play some music in there. Think about what they do on their own and see if you can find ways to make them a bit more comfortable about that. If your dog's a pacer, the Adaptil collar is probably a better option. And just, depending on what they do, try and match your success station to that, because they're already trying to self-soothe there. So take that into account when you're deciding what to do day of.
Great advice.
Yeah. And really, this one depends on your dog. Some dogs do not want you around. They want to be alone. They don't want, like, your presence makes them more stressed. But most dogs, they do want that comfort. But when you do, try not to make a big deal out of it. Try not to, like a lot of us, when we're feeling sympathetic, our voice goes up. Just try to talk in normal tones. Don't try to, you can comfort them for sure, but try not to, like, oh, I'm so sorry, this is so hard, oh no. Just like, yeah, you're doing great, this is fine, you're doing good, I'm here with you. Because yeah, if our voices kind of show that we're making a big deal out of it, it can lead them to be even more stressed, which we obviously don't want. We all want to help our dogs as much as possible, or else we wouldn't be part of a group like Golden Dog.
That's true.
Yeah, like what we do can really make a big difference. And as far as like success stations go, like stuff that smells like you, stuff that smells like them. So if they have a blanket that they really like to spend a lot of time in, you can involve that. Get your Thunder shirts out. What's really important though is the Thunder shirt. If you're using a Thunder shirt or a calming cap, you can't just use it when the thunderstorms are happening, because you can very quickly poison that thing. And even if you pick it up on a beautiful day, they see it, they might start to be like, oh no, thunderstorm's coming.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tool to help, but it's definitely something that shouldn't just be used day of, because we can use that. They can start to predict things like that quite often.
We've got a couple more comments here, Jake, if we've got a second.
Yeah.
So let's see. Laura says, another good example, smoke detector sensitivity that leads dogs to react to burning food before the detector goes off, or even going back further. Dogs who then don't like to be around when you use the stove. That is so interesting, kind of the chain of events and going back to things that would cause a smoke detector to go off. So now your dog might be afraid to eat their food in the kitchen, and you think maybe they're not feeling well. I mean, we could theorize all day long on different things here related to noise, I think.
Sure, definitely. And my parents' dog, Pemmy, is that dog. The fire alarm went off a couple times and she was terrified. And for a while, my parents couldn't cook without her. They couldn't get pots and pans out without her panicking.
Oh,
so they had to grill everything. They had to cook outside. Luckily, she's pretty much over that after we did a lot of training. But yeah, that is tough, because that's, you have to change your whole life or else your dog's terrified. But yeah, smoke alarm is a big one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Nancy says, I've used a white noise machine, but I don't think it worked for Lucy. But sometimes that does work well for dogs.
Yep.
Let's see. Cindy said, I do have my doorbell taped off because it scares the crap out of Jethro.
Yeah.
Same with our dogs. All three of them react like somebody's trying to break in.
Yep. Most dogs do.
Yep. I like watching storms, and sometimes we'll sit in front of the door to watch them. Gilly will sit next to me where Dakota goes downstairs into her bed. Yep. Gilly's just not fazed by it.
Yep. I love watching storms.
Yeah. Michelle says, Ruby literally tries to climb on our heads panting. I just calmly tell her she's okay. It's fine. And again, once we start doing enrichment activities, she's panting a little, but she pretty much forgets what's going on.
Good.
She does things like agility, tricks, fitness, busy stuff, no puzzles or lick mats. It can be super tiring for mama when it's going on for a long time. That's true.
Absolutely.
Good comments, guys. Thank you.
Stuff like that, enrichment day of, is really, really helpful. But not for every dog. Some dogs, they're so afraid that doesn't matter. You can throw a steak in front of them. They're like, no, I can't do
Yep.
anything except my fear. So yeah, part of your success station could definitely be snuffle mats, definitely be lick mats. And one thing that I really push on people is like sometimes you got to experiment. Sometimes what works for one dog is not going to work for others. So
True.
all that like agility stuff, that's great. I'm really glad it works. But I know like I keep bringing up my parents' dog Pemmy. That nope, she's not going to do any of that stuff. Um, and yeah, so that's one of the things, like prevention is super important. So if anybody's listening that has a puppy, like if thunderstorms, fireworks are going on, then good things are happening. I'd way rather my dog wake me up to play because they hear fireworks than try to hide and panic when they do.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of prevention around that stuff. Good things happen when loud noises happen. But once again, you never want to make a big deal out of it. Don't want to make the event an event any more than it already is. That can
That's
be
a good
really
point.
helpful. But yeah, I love that the enrichment works. Anybody out there who's struggling with this, you might try any of that. It's interesting that the active stuff works better because generally it is the calm stuff. It's the lick mats, it's the snuffle mats that help dogs a little bit more than that. But yeah, once again, not every dog's different. Something's
right.
going to work differently for every dog. But yeah, next time, throw on a little reggae while you're doing your agility, and
That's
maybe
right. And
that'll work
see if
even
the
better.
combination works. That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Jake, Ray's wondering, can dogs learn fear of noises from watching other dogs? So if you've got, 2 or 3 dogs in the pack, I mean, it sounds like that's kind of the way it was with Ruby and Brutus.
Yeah, they definitely can. It's not super common though.
Okay.
It really depends on the personalities and the dynamics. But they can for sure. But it's not like there's no guarantee or anything. But yeah, that's one thing that's really a little bit more common is after they lose, like if you have 2 dogs in the house, if you lose one dog, then the other dog sometimes is a little more likely to develop these phobias that they didn't have before. But yeah, they can pick it up, but it's generally that's not what happens.
Okay.
Once again, like the experimenting with what works for your dog, it depends on the dog.
Makes
For
sense.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool. Yeah. So let's see. Cool. So we have a webinar coming up, and it's gonna be Monday, June 19th at 6 p.m. And so we're gonna go over like what we just talked about, some tools and plans for the day of events, but you'll have a chance to work with me and really develop and problem solve those plans. We'll go over some more tools. And included, we didn't talk about this much, which we should have, but medication can be so important to helping any noise phobic dog. And there's like a bit of a stigma. I'm sure this conversation has been had in this group before. There's a stigma around medication, but sometimes it's absolutely necessary to help your dog get over noise phobia. So I have a conversation with Dr. Shannon Emmons. It's about 25 minutes. We talk all about the role medication can play. We talk about how to bring it up to your vet. We talk about the stigma. We talk about lots of good stuff. That's included in the webinar. And the big thing is we'll go through some detailed training plans to help your dog get past their fears. So yeah, specific ways to really help. So you don't need these day of things as much anymore, and you don't need the medication as much anymore. And so yeah, with 4th of July coming up and Thunderwork season and full gear, there are ways that we can help our dogs just get over these fears. Like I said at the beginning, it feels like we're super helpless when this is going on, but there are ways that we can definitely help. It takes a while. It's not easy. It's a little time consuming, but it's totally worth it.
So, Jake, do you think, I know this is coming up on June 19th, will people have a chance to learn some really good, solid strategies and have time to practice them before Independence Day to see if some of the training has worked for them?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, great.
Depending on your schedule,
Yep.
of course, but definitely you'll have time to start to implement the stuff and see what's helping, and you'll have plenty of knowledge. But Traci mentioned something at the beginning. If your dog is really afraid of fireworks, now is the time to reach out to your vet, not not in a couple
Not
weeks.
July 3rd, right?
Exactly. Um, but yeah,
So
yeah,
I love that you and Dr. Emmons are partnering on this. That I think that's going to be a really valuable conversation.
yeah. She's a great asset to have. Really knowledgeable. So yeah, we were
Absolutely.
lucky that she said yes. Um, but yeah. So just so everybody know, recordings will be available. We're gonna have a group for support. It's $50, but if you sign up by the end of the day today, $20 off if you use the code EarlyBird.
Well, that's a pretty good deal.
Yeah,
Jeez, that's a very good deal.
yeah. So yeah, we want to help dogs.
Yeah. And how long is the webinar, Jake?
I expect it to be between probably about an hour and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, because we're going to go over a lot of detail, and there's going to be lots of videos, and the conversation with Dr. Emmons is in there. So, and there'll be time for Q&A and all that fun stuff.
Okay, great. So you guys can see here, you can go to the bit.ly link that Jake has, or the redpointydog.com/Barrington-classes link in the banner. Use that code EarlyBird to save that $20 off. Let's see, we've got a couple other comments here. So Michelle says, we use Trazodone to take Ruby to the vets and do use it during storms and fireworks as well. There were fireworks Memorial Day, and the Trazodone really helped her.
Good.
She wasn't as anxious and was able to settle better. And I've heard there's a few of our members who do use Trazodone successfully. So I don't know if, do you know if Dr. Emmons might be talking about that one specifically?
Yeah, we don't get into super specifics about like specific medicine, but I know Trazodone is what your vet is going to first recommend, almost like 95% of the time. So we definitely do talk about Trazodone. And I would want to say something real quick. They're rare, but sometimes Trazodone makes things worse. So if you're a person who in the past has experienced that, don't let that sour you on medication as a whole. It's definitely not unheard of. Just like everything else, it depends on the individual. Sometimes Trazodone is life-saving. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it really, really helps. And sometimes, yeah, your dog will just be sedated and scared. But generally, Trazodone is where we start and is helpful for the majority of cases.
Yeah, and I've heard from quite a few people who have had good success with it. But you're right;
Yep.
don't let it sour your thoughts and on meds as a whole.
Yeah.
And I've heard some people have used CBD,
Yep.
for dogs successfully as well. So again, like Jake mentioned, it's all about your dog and what works well for them, and having your team of people to help you with this, your trainer, your veterinarian, to make sure that everything you're doing for your dog is going to work for their needs.
And you definitely want to have a relationship with your trainer and your vet, and your trainer and your vet should have a relationship too. So build a team for your dog.
That's exactly right.
Can be the most helpful thing for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I'm really excited for this, Jake. This seems like a fantastic offering, and we had a lot of great comments today and questions. Great that you guys could join us. As we're wrapping up here, if you have any additional questions for Jake about what he talked about today or about his webinar, let us know. Otherwise, I highly encourage you to rush over to this link here, redpointydog.com/Barrington-classes. Don't forget to put the dash in the middle and use code EarlyBird. $30 for 90 minutes of this type of information to make your dog feel more comfortable. Seems like a no-brainer to me as far as an investment. So appreciate you giving such a great offer to our community. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, I hope so. And people, if they don't already know, if you missed the early bird special, you can still use your code for Golden Dog to get that discount. The early bird's a bit more of a discount, but definitely use it for this if you want.
Excellent. Okay, good. Well, any last things that we should know, Jake, about this webinar or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Just like I'll be, monitoring the comments and stuff. So if you're
Okay.
watching a replay, definitely ask, and I'll see what I can do to answer everything.
Perfect.
Yeah. Other than that, yeah, I just hope you can find a little bit more peace during these noisy events.
Agreed. All right. Well, thank you, Jake, so much for this fantastic information. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in with us today. Hopefully, we will see you at this webinar in just a few days. All
Yeah.
right. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks, everyone.